This is Jesse Cotton, a Yu-Gi-Oh! World Champion, and he's about to play in one of his most bizarre matches in his career, because sitting across the table from him is a 10-year-old who's never played Yu-Gi-Oh! What followed next was quite possibly the lowest moment in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! history.
Like you eviscerated that child, Jesse.
But before we move on to the duel, we need to set the scene. This duel wasn't just like any normal Yu-Gi-Oh! Match. It was a duel taking place in quite possibly one of Yu-Gi-Oh!'s darkest ages. This format had seen some of the highest proportion of strategies that were just not fun to play against. So many decks could win on the first turn, discard your entire hand before the opponent draws a card. Hell, there were even decks that could banish every single card from your deck, leaving you with quite literally no cards to play with. And the root of this cancer stemmed from one single card, Firewall Dragon. In case you're wondering why ritual monsters now have arrows on them, I'll give a quick rundown on how this card works. Its effect is where once while face up on a field, quick effect, you can target monsters on a field and or graveyard up to the number of monsters co-linked to this card. Return them to the hand. If a monster this card points to is destroyed by battle or sent to the grave, you can special summon one monster from your hand. To anyone who's remotely familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh!, it was clear this card was completely broken. Without a resource system to keep the number of moves a player can make in a turn in check, Yu-Gi-Oh! Often straddles the line in being broken overnight with its catalogue of over 10,000 cards that can be played at any point, where many seemingly worthless cards are abused back and forth, without the single guard that keeps the card in check. Being the sole line, this card can only be used once per turn. In fact, if you've ever seen a card in Yu-Gi-Oh! That doesn't have this line, there's a 9% chance that it's been involved in some sort of degenerate combo at one point in Yu-Gi-Oh!'s history, and in the modern design of the game, it's very rare to see cards without this line, no matter how awful. To make sure that there aren't any potential exploits that can slip through the cracks, Firewall Dragon for absolutely no reason was one of these exceptions. The first part of the card effect isn't anything too crazy, and whilst it adds some nice utility, wasn't what made the card completely bonkers. The secondary effect could special summon any monster from your hand if any monster was sent to your grave or destroyed by battle, as many times as you want. Your monster gets sent to the grave for a fusion summon, you can special summon a monster. Your monster gets destroyed by Regeki Break, special summon a monster. Your monster trips and falls, special summon a monster. This card generated so much insane advantage, as you essentially had an infinite way to dump your entire hand for basically doing nothing. And with the rampant power creep of link summoning, a new special form of summoning from the extra deck, where you could link summon at any time by sending any choice of cards from your field to the grave, which, hey, procs Firewall's effect. As expected, this card generated a variety of ways to win on your first turn, with the huge card advantage you would gain for simply doing anything. For example, Cannon Soldier, a card that was balanced by the fact that it came out when special summoning more than 10 times in a turn, would be inconceivable for most decks, let you tribute one monster and deal 500 points of burn damage. But without the once per turn clause, provided you had enough monsters to sacrifice, you could theoretically do it over again and again and again. So paired with Firewall Dragon, every time you sent a monster to the grave for Cannon Soldier, that monster would get replaced by whatever fodder you had in your hand by Firewall Dragon's effect, giving you infinite monsters for Cannon Soldier's effect. As much as the people who had never touched a game past the age of 8 like to complain about Yu-Gi-Oh!, this format was quite literally solitaire. It was extremely common to see a match consisting of one player moving around some cards on her playmat for 6 minutes and winning without the other player even drawing a single card. What's worse is that Firewall Dragon was let rampant for an entire year. Hell, it originally was allowed to be played at 3 copies for a bit, before Konami thought that limiting it to 1 copy would solve the entire mess of a format. It didn't. So for most of 2018, if you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, you're facing off against decks that would be very consistently winning on your first turn, before you even got to play a single move. And that's what poor Matthew was facing off against at YCS London 2018. But before we move on to the rest of the video, I want to thank FlexiSpot for sponsoring today's video. I've recently renovated my setup and upgraded to the FlexiSpot E7 standing desk, along with their treadmill, and they've genuinely made my workflow so much more comfortable. I spend a lot of time editing videos, and sitting all day really wasn't doing my posture any favors. With this setup, I can switch between sitting, standing, or walking depending on what I'm doing. One of the coolest things about the treadmill is that it has Bluetooth MP3 playback, so I can listen to music whilst I'm walking. The treadmill is also extremely durable. It's built with a 275-pound weight capacity, it's sturdy enough that I can walk while typing, and even do light workouts like dumbbell curls without worrying about stability. The E7 desk itself also is extremely premium. It's very sturdy, I tested it at different heights, and there's barely any wobble. The height adjustment is smooth, and it supports up to 160 kilos, so it easily handles a full gaming setup without any issues. For me, the mix of stability, weight capacity, and a price is what sold me. And if you're interested, FlexiSpot's Black Friday sale is right around the corner. You can get up to 80% off, plus a chance to win your entire order for free. You can use my code YTE730 for an extra $30 off. FlexiSpot also offers discounts for medical workers, students, graduates, teachers, and the military. If you pick one up, leave a note with my channel name at checkout. It really helps support the channel. Now, let's get back to the video. Of course, to showcase the wonderful spectacle of the matches that Yu-Gi-Oh! Had to offer, a live stream was being broadcast, and so the tournament producers had a real conundrum on their hands. What better way to promote the game than a clash between the best of the best, trading blow for blow in a test of pure skill? And they settled on a match between Jesse Cotton, the previous winner of YCS London 2017, one of Yu-Gi-Oh's rising stars in contention for the best, against Matthew Thompson, a literal 10-year-old. In one corner, we have Jesse Cotton, being a pro duelist he is, playing one of the meta-viable strategies for the tournament, so he's playing Danger Dark World first turn kill. And in the other corner, we have 10-year-old Matthew Thompson, and he's playing, other. This wasn't a fair match by any definition of the word. Where Jesse was studying combo lines the night before, Matthew was studying decimals. Jesse's biggest stress in life was about how to pay rent. Matthew's biggest stress was about wondering how his spelling test would go. What's probably the worst part about this setup is that the tournament producers knew what they were doing. Every duelist before they sign up is required to submit a deck list showing every card they plan on using, and they knew for a fact that Matthew was playing a pile of pack filler cards that you would find for 4 cents on TCG Player, the Aster Phoenix if you will.
I haven't even stocked the shelves yet.
Then I'll just take whatever's lying around.
It was clear to anyone that Matthew was a new player who had come to the tournament because of the anime. You could tell by the Dark Magician and Red Eyes Black Dragon in his deck.
But looking at Matthew's deck, he's playing quite a versatile deck. He seems to be a big fan of the anime here. He's playing cards like Red Eyes and Dark Magician. UFO Turtle is in there as well. He's got some Gravekeepers in there as well.
Did Yugi play UFO Turtle at any point?
But unfortunately, this was Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2018. This was the big leagues. It's a game dominated almost exclusively by grown men with poor social skills in their mid to late 20s.
Setting 3 cards face down.
You know you got 4 darks.
My turn is over.
And to top off, this was quite literally the first tournament he had ever attended in his life.
Alright, and you're now going up against Jesse Cotton. Are you a bit nervous, or you're like, okay, I'm going to crush this guy?
Quite nervous since this is my first tournament.
But I can tell you with confidence, we've seen this before. We've seen some of the most experienced players. Sometimes they get cocky. He doesn't seem cocky right now, but we never know.
This was set up to be a David against Goliath, a real underdog match where maybe even a kid with no experience could win. As long as they believed in the heart of the cards and maybe, just maybe, against all the odds, they could win. Our young duelist could draw the one card that could turn the tide. Well, that's assuming he even got to draw a card before losing. To add to the absurdity of the situation, the commentators of course play it straight. After all, these were the cards they were dealt with. To their credit, they treat Matthew like any other serious competitor, pretending like the outcome of the duel is anything but a bloodbath.
He mentioned that it's his first tournament. That's impressive. It shows a lot of character. Let's see how they get on, I guess.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're currently enjoying the video, why not subscribe to the channel? It helps me a lot and lets me know this is the kind of content that you want to watch. On to the actual match, Jesse gets to go first, and activates the effect of Danger Dogman. Danger cards all work the same way. You show one to your opponent, and they randomly pick a card from your hand to discard, and if it's not the Danger monster, you get to summon it and draw a card. Each one also has its own special effect when it's discarded, and miraculously, Matthew manages to snipe Danger Dogman, causing Jesse to discard it. A bit of bad luck for Jesse, as Danger Dogman's discard effect didn't do anything. But that's not to worry, as Jesse still has another Danger monster in his hand. So he activates the effect of Danger Nessie, and once again, Matthew manages to hit Nessie. So far, maybe it's through the heart of the cards, Matthew hasn't managed to lose. Yet. Unfortunately for Matthew, Nessie actually rewards Jesse for being discarded this time, letting him search for another Danger monster from his deck. And so this time, Jesse activates Danger Mothman's effect to let Matthew pick a card to get discarded. And surely, this is the momentum starter that Jesse finally has to win. Oh wow, Matthew managed to somehow pick the 3rd Danger card in a row. Jesse, with nothing left to do, has to pass the turn to Matthew. Matthew had survived the turn against one of the best players Yu-Gi-Oh! Had ever seen. There's a semblance of a chance of Matthew countering here. Jesse had nothing on his field, no traps, no monsters, just a single useless spell that he had set. This was the chance that Matthew needed, to prove to the world that maybe if there was a connection with the cards in your deck, that the heart of the cards could prevail.
The beginning of the end.
He has.
Matthew plays a single field spell and passes. Not exactly the reversal that was needed for Matthew to win. The field spell that Matthew activated was Temple of the Mind's Eye, a card that reduced any battle damage to 1000. Except Jesse's deck doesn't even use battle damage, he wins by burning your life points directly, making this card functionally useless. We even get to take a peek at Matthew's hand.
And Matthew, he's got that token collector, Signet Refresh, Toll Hike, Gravekeeper Spiritualist, and Danger Dogman as well.
Which, to put it politely, was a random assortment of cards that had nothing to do with each other. And then Jesse begins his next turn, and what happens next can only be described as an onslaught. Cards start flying, monsters are being summoned, discarded. Every second Matthew's being exposed to a new card he had never heard of, a new summoning mechanic he didn't know existed, each new card text being longer than the last. All the while, Matthew's still trying to figure out how Jesse managed to summon more than one monster in a turn.
Can you remember when your first tournament was and how you felt going into that, and what this might feel for Matthew here being at a YCS up against this?
I mean, my first tournament was a long time ago. It was long enough ago that things like this didn't happen so often. You know, I remember the Demise King of Armageddon OTK and being kind of, you know, slightly outraged by that. But other than that, the idea of not actually having a turn was not very prevalent.
Jesse's turn takes so long that Matthew's actually spent more time shuffling Jesse's deck than he has actually playing the game. In fact, Jesse goes above and beyond, summoning Elder Entity Azathoth, a card that prevents Matthew from activating any rogue hand traps from his hand, a move which I'm totally sure was lost on him, as at this point, Matthew was just watching a pretty cardboard move on the desk. Matthew at one point during Jesse's turn, presumably confused as to what's even happening, calls over Judge to help explain how Jesse has managed to win on his first turn, which after an explanation from both the judge and Jesse, presumably still left him just as confused as he was before he began.
I think Jesse's just explaining the combo to Matthew now. I don't think he's seen this before.
So yeah, the first game ends in a loss for Matthew, and we move on to the siding phase. In Yu-Gi-Oh!, in between each duel of a match, players have the option to swap out cards from their deck, with what's known as a side deck, which typically is full of cards that counter other meta decks. Jesse and Matthew both opt to not do this for two totally different reasons.
It doesn't look like either players have elected to use the side deck.
Matthew probably didn't have a side deck, most likely because he was unaware of siding being a component of the game. Jesse chose not to because he had seen Matthew play a single card. Even on the second game, the commentators still played completely straight, attempting to form some commentary over what is essentially seeing Jesse fiddle around with paper for 10 minutes.
He's got Gigantes and some older, really like...
Gigantes is pretty fun.
It's a great card. Any interactions we're expecting from the field there for Matthew? Probably...
I don't actually know what Showdown of the Secret Sense scroll does.
Matthew gets to go first as Jesse's won the first game. He sets a total of 3 trap cards: Necrofusion, the Revenge of the Normal, and Showdown of the Secret Sense, 2 of which are impossible to play under the current conditions, and a lone UFO turtle.
One face down monster into the field, which we know is the UFO turtle.
The play goes to Jesse, and unfortunately for Matthew, Jesse actually is able to make some moves, and Jesse still spares no expense by destroying one of Matthew's traps, which, on the bright side, wasn't that much of a loss for Matthew considering the card couldn't even be played.
And now...
I think it's fair to say Matthew is in danger here as well.
Yeah. Good one, Dom.
Very interestingly, Matthew does attempt to counter one of Jesse's plays. Matthew rather excitedly, finally hopeful at the opportunity of getting to play a move instead of spectating someone else, activates Showdown of the Secret Sense scroll. Well, at least he thought he could, before being let down by the judge that he in fact could not play anything, and was stuck sitting there again. Jesse again goes full combo for another couple of minutes, until about 15 minutes into the game, Matthew finally gets to play his very first and only card of the entire match.
Oh, that's cheeky. He's just negated his opponent's beginning of the end.
This one simple card would be the wrench in the wheel of Jesse's unstoppable combo. Maybe it would stop his momentum and be the start of a snowball towards Matthew's victory.
So as we see, Jesse with a 2-0.
Jesse basically ignores Matthew's counter trap and as retaliation destroys the remaining trap that Matthew had, leaving no stone left unturned, and with that, the last trap being destroyed, which again for Matthew was a card that he was unable to play. Matthew is left with a single lone UFO turtle, and as we'll soon see, is the only monster he got to summon this entire match. The commentators for the next 3 minutes attempt to fill the air by pretending they aren't watching the most one-sided stomp ever in Yu-Gi-Oh! History.
So how much would that trap card have interrupted what Jesse's doing right now.
Well,
Do you think it's actually going to have an impact on the game? Could it really shift any momentum into Matthew's
I
way?
am fully expecting Jesse to still assemble his win condition this turn.
Okay.
Matthew ends his suffering when he sees Toon Cannon Soldier and decides to cut his losses and concedes the game, ending his very short-lived Yu-Gi-Oh career on stream. The post-match Roundup commentary is also just as absurd as the entire game that preceded it.
And Matthew came back a bit in the second game though with the trap.
Yeah, that was quite fun.
He stopped the second activation of the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
And I think it took Jesse off.
It took him by surprise, but I think he was more than capable of continuing.
As is customary, the producers also give Jesse a post-match interview to try and gain any strategic insights into the brain of a world champion at, well, how he managed to beat a child on stream. And Jesse has the expected reaction of someone who understands the atrocity that's just been broadcasted to thousands of people live on air.
Well, this weekend, this is what happens when we do it live. But I hope you guys are going to enjoy the show. We got so much other stuff planned for you.
The interviewer proceeds as if this was some hard-fought clash between two equals, politely ignoring the fact that thousands of viewers had just watched 10-year-olds sit motionless for 20 minutes and only getting to play a single card.
If he had hit the Dogman for the 4th time in a row, I would have lost. I wouldn't have lost.
He hit like 3 in a row, something like that. And other players, they then like mentally give up. And I mean, you've been at the like highest levels of competition. What do you do to like stay in the zone and make sure that you're not giving up?
You try not to laugh, but
if you're talking to somebody like Matthew and you're advising him how to get to the top, basically, that would be your advice. Like, stay determined, set goals, work at it.
Of course, like everyone's gonna have different roads, right? Like you gotta work hard, you gotta keep at it, don't give up. Like my road to where I am now in the game is not easy.
So yeah, what would you say is like probably your most iconic moment of your career? Like, what is like the thing?
Your favorite win?
FTKing a kid with firewall.
There's no.
The match lives on in Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitive history for being one of the most unintentionally funny and insulting matches ever to be shown at a YCS. Following this YCS, miraculously, Firewall Dragon got banned in the Forbidden Limited list.
Oh god. Oh my god! They fucking banned him! They fucking banned Firewall
Whether it was
Dragon.
related to the public reaction of seeing a child like this lose on stream, or that Konami remembered that they could ban cards, we'll never know. None of the fault could be laid on Jesse, Matthew, or even the commentators. Who can be blamed for this mess of a match is definitely the tournament producers, who could see that the 10-year-old was in fact not prepared to play against the world champion with his Dark Magician deck. What's for certain is that for many people, this duel perfectly encapsulated the state of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! A game so broken and messy, it leads to a game like this being displayed for the world to see. We've just witnessed quite possibly the worst match in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, but what if I told you there was a time when the exact opposite happened? When one of the weakest, most gimmicky cards in the entire game somehow took one of Yu-Gi-Oh!'s strongest decks ever. Click here to see how Exodia actually pulled off the impossible, and why it might be the most legendary win